In this video, I will show you how I prepare a Linocut block. I talk about the paper I chose for this project. We'll go over carving registration marks and the pros and cons of using different chisels. Now let's get started. Alright, welcome back. I finished spraying the block with polyurethane clear gloss. Took about 3 or 4 light coats to get a nice even application. You can see the shine that's on the surface. And I'm spraying this to preserve the drawing. So this was a graphite and there's no smudging. After I ink the block and clean the ink off of the block, I'll be able to see the drawing underneath or the tracing underneath. So it's just a protective layer. Hopefully it holds up throughout the entire print. And before we get into any carving or printing, I'd like to talk about the paper I chose for this project. So we're going to be using an Awagami editioning paper, and it's called Kozo Natural Select. And it has no sizing in it, so it's just the raw fibers. 80% Kozo and 20% alpha cellulose, which is just wood pulp. So I wouldn't choose this paper for water-based printing because of the wood pulp in there. It would expand and contract too much and I wouldn't get a nice close registration. So for this I'm using oil-based pigments, and this paper is going to work really well because it's very strong. You can see how long these fibers are, these Kozo fibers. So this paper is thinner. It's a 46 GM squared. This is a strong paper and it will withhold many impressions, and it will also do well with if I'm using the Baron on the back. So it's thin enough to get a nice impression of these fine details that I hope to acquire in the last few prints of this image. And it also has a nice flat smooth surface on the front, and it's a little bit rougher on the back, but it's a nice thin paper, which I like to work with thinner papers for printmaking. So we're going to start today. We have to first carve these Kento marks. Linoleum is a little bit softer than a wood block, so I don't like to go too deep with my Kento, just enough to get the edge of the paper in. And I'm just going to carve straight down, nice clean line, just maybe 2 passes. I don't want to go too deep into the material. Also, one here. Now I'll go to my carving bench to finish off this carving. Alright, so I'm back at my carving bench, and I just want to take away just the depth of this material. Maybe I didn't go deep enough with the razor blade. There it goes. So I just want to take away just a little bit here. Nice clean edge, and then I'll come back on an angle. I don't want to get too fussy in here. Like I mentioned, the linoleum is soft, so I just want to go shallow enough to accept the corner of the paper. If I grab a sheet of paper that I'll be using, just want this be deep enough for the paper to hit these edges, and that's all it takes, just a little bit. I'll try to show you here the depth of it. Same thing for this mark here. This piece of linoleum is probably 4 or 5 years old, maybe even older. So it's kind of hard, but I enjoy it when it's a little bit more firm. I find that it holds its detail a little better when it's aged a little. So that's a nice edge there. And again, we can test it with, zoom out a little, test it with our paper. We want it to go in there clean and precise every time. So that's looking good. Now we will carve around the perimeter of the image and clear away this margin, leaving a border around the whole block for support when we run this through the press. So this is just general carving. Zoom out here a little bit. I'll leave the camera on and you can see me do a couple lines. So first we got to do around the perimeter. I could use a straight edge for this and a razor blade or a utility knife, but I really enjoy carving these long straight lines. Plus I like a little bit of variety in my lines. This is a hand carved print. So that's one long line. Now if we can come back, let's clean it up. Just pulling along slowly. And this is the advantage of using a knife rather than a V-gouge. V-gouges are not, I almost got that perfectly. I need to come back here second time. Clean this up. There we are. One piece, 2 cuts for this line. V-gouges aren't, I have one here. So the problem with a V-gouge, see I'm gonna carve along this line at the margin. As I'm carving along the line, see the material is pulling up, it's curling up. You can see that? So the material is in the line, I can't see what's underneath. So I'm constantly having to fold that material over or breaking it off and starting again. So it's just in the way. So you're always looking down at this material that's pulling up. So it's okay for rough work, I guess. But for detailed work, I use a knife. So for rough work, it's fine. The knife, I can just get a nice, straight, deep cut right off the bat. Boom. Come back. Two cuts, probably this faster than the V-gouge. It's deeper, it's cleaner, and I could see the whole process because I'm working over my tool like this. I can see the whole way. So around these kento, I will make the shape that I prefer. Just like a basic shape like this. And then at the corner, the same thing. Just make sure I go through here. And I'm going to continue with this margin. So this is exactly the same way I would clear a Mokahanga block or a cherry block. Same exact process. Same tools, just different surface. And I'm really enjoying the hardness of this linoleum. That's probably, this piece is actually probably quite old. It's probably as old as my son, which is, it's probably 8 years old, 9 years old. So it gets a little harder with time. Some people complain about Battleship Gray as being too hard to carve, but I find it's very easy to carve. Alright, so that's the rough margin shape, and now I'm going to continue around the border. Alright, now I'll probably just take a U-gouge. This is just a traditional wood carving U-gouge, and I'm going to clean up this margin. So we'll start here. This, I don't want to go too deep with this. I could feel I went too deep, and I can get down to the backing of this linoleum, which is like a burlap mesh material. I don't want to get that deep. If you hit that, you're going too deep. So once I have the first cut, the second cut's always easier. That's what's nice about linoleum compared to wood. You can really make progress on carving much faster, because the material is so much softer. And now, because this was a U-gouge, it's going to leave these ridges in the material. So I come back with my bullnose chisel and just knock those down flat. I'm also going to put a bevel on this edge here, so that's nice and smooth. And then I'm going to clean up all the way to the edge of my block. If you don't knock down those ridges, ink will get stuck on there, and then you could get printing in the margin of your paper, which we always try to avoid. We try to keep the margin, at least I try to keep the margin as clean as possible. It just makes for a more professional looking print. The presentation of your work looks cleaner. So that's one edge down. I'm just going to keep going around the rest of the image. I could just use this chisel for the whole thing. Take off nice big chunks here. I try not to get too fussy with this material, because the more you fuss with it, the more it gets these little particles, and then they end up in your print. So just really clean, try to be really clean when you cut this linoleum. Really deliberate cuts. That's too deep. If you go too deep, just back your tool out. And readjust the depth. And what I mean by being too fussy is, like, you don't want to go like that. It's too much. See, went too deep here, all the way to the backing. We don't want that. So nice long, even cuts. That should be pretty good. Bevel down this edge a little. See, I don't really like the U-gouge too much because it leaves these ridges. I really just prefer to use my bullnose chisel here, because I got to come back and flatten out these ridges anyways. So a shallow U-gouge would be better. A shallower scoop. I got to come back and flatten these ridges out, so it's the amount of just more carving, more passes to get the same depth. Alright, it's looking good. So there it is. So we will start by printing. The first color is going to be a sky tone. I'll be applying a gradation of a light, it's going to be kind of a light warm tone to start with. It's going to be the highlight on the edges of these clouds. So it's going to be like a warm kind of orange to yellow color. But it's going to be very transparent and thin, and it's just going to be the highlights that are on the edges of these cloud shapes that I want. So it's really just this section here. Do like a light yellow or orange gradation. So let's go mix up some color and get this ready for the press.